Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Liz Trincone, and I am a Client Success Advisor here at Zola Suite. And I'm excited to talk to you today about efficient flat fee billing. As always, we are going to be recording this session. If you are not able to attend today's session and you need this recording or one of your colleagues does, we will have it available by Monday, the latest of next week. So we usually have them a little sooner, but there's going to be a little bit longer downtime to get this video out, but we'll have it by Monday. And as always, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have on the topics that we're covering in the Q&A section of the webinar. So we're going to get started. So there are many different billing types within Zola Suite. If you've used the accounting portion of the program, you're probably somewhat familiar with this. And today we're going to be focusing on flat fees specifically. So I do have one of my matters open here. And just for the purposes of flexibility, I'm going to show you a couple of different flat fee options that we have. And before I actually do that, I do want to jump into firm settings because firm settings is always going to be the backbone of your system, of your database, and of the type of data that you're putting in, because this is where you're going to populate your flat fees, as well as other items like soft costs and billing groups. You have so many options in here, but specifically for the flat fees, this is going to make it so that you're able to select the flat fee that you need at any given time for any given practice area, especially if they may span over several practice areas. As you can see, we have a number of different ones in here. And this also gives you the unique opportunity to put in a service description, so that instead of having to do a write-up on what you're charging this fee for or what the service is at the time that you're actually billing it, it can be pre-populated. And in addition, if you do need to add some specific details for whatever reasons you may have, you are able to tailor that service description. It doesn't have to be preset. Another nice thing about the flat fees is that the default price is not actually a required field. So as you can see, we have a couple that are labeled 0 here. So if you have one that is going to be a consistent rate at all times, you can certainly set that, and I would recommend doing so. But if it can vary, it's certainly okay to leave it at 0 and set it at the time that you're actually going to bill it to the matter. And as you can see, we do have the plus sign here to add. Any of the existing items on our list, we can use the pencil to modify. You can also mark any of these as inactive if you're no longer using them. Of course, if you do want them deleted, you can make a request in the Help Center to support, and we can have that deleted for you from the system, but you can also have it marked as inactive. So now, if we jump back into one of my matters here, and this one is a divorce case, and I'm going to try to keep it as broad and flexible as possible for different scenarios. So I have this set as time and flat fee, and that's going to give me the option to add any flat fees that I need, whether it's a consult fee or some other just flat fee that I'm charging up front. And I can also bill by the hour. Now, I also have, if we look at the drop-down list, flat fee based only. We have flat fee and contingency based, and what I just had was time and flat fee. Flat fee based only is going to be a little bit different, because if I update the matter to just flat fee, when I go to try to make a time entry, what's going to happen is it's going to mark it as no charge, don't show. If I had left it as flat fee and time, my time entries would be standard. But since I'm only billing the flat fee at this point, I don't want that to be the case. I want my time entries to be internal only. Don't want them to be invoiced. I don't want the client to see them. I'm using this for internal purposes. And this is going to feed into our productivity report, which we're going to get to in a few minutes. So that is the difference between flat fee and time. Now, some users have asked in the past, well, I have a matter that may need to be non-billable at first, but then after a certain period of time, a certain number of hours worked, maybe something changed within the matter, I have to now bill by the hour, or vice versa. It could happen to be either scenario. You can at any point come in here and change this billing type. It will not affect anything that you've already done. So if you have invoiced activity or billable activity, that will remain as is. But going forward, if you need it to be non-billable, it will do that. So it protects the integrity of what you've already done and lets you tailor what you're going to do in the future. So I'd just like to point that out because I know there are some situations where that may be the case. So in this situation, if I wanted to create a flat fee for this matter, what I would do is I would go to my time and expenses tab. I'm going to go over to the flat fees section. And just keep in mind, this is all part of my WIP, my work in progress. That includes my time entries, my flat fees, and my expenses. So I'm going to create my flat fee with the plus sign here. The service type dropdown is going to feed directly from that area and firm settings that we looked at. So I'm going to choose my consultation for uncontested divorce. So just doing an initial consult, maybe providing some documentation, and maybe I know that this person is going to go with our firm. I'm going to save this. And again, you can change the rate here. You can change the date, the user. You can even change the description. I know that this is a pre-populated default narrative that I've created, but if you have to tailor it to something unique, you always have the option to do that, or to just add to what's already there. I'm just adding a little extra detail. You do also have a quantity option here. So since this is only one person and I'm only doing one consultation for her, excuse me, this is going to be one. So you can see that this has now gone into my WIP as a non-invoiced activity. You can see my rate. And if I wanted to generate an invoice because I'm maybe at my end of my billing cycle, when I go to invoice unbilled activities, you're going to see the flat fee appear in the unbilled activities. So it's organized by type. So I've got my flat fees. I did also have some soft cost and vendor bill details on this matter as well. And if I go back, I can also add an additional flat fee because perhaps at this point I've now not only had the client retain my firm, but we're providing mediation services. And that is another pre-populated item that I've created. So I can add as many of these as I need, and that will all go into my WIP. And when I invoice it, it will all be invoiced to the client. I do want to show an example of what leads items or leads matters are going to look like when it comes to flat fees, because this is going to reflect any leads billing that you're doing. So if you go into the options of the matter, you just want to make sure that you have enable UTBMS codes and your specific code sets for leads. And once you go back to time and expenses and create a new flat fee, You can see that this one is a little bit different than the last one we looked at. So I have my service type, but now I also have my UTBMS activity, so my activity code, and my task code. And these can be customized within your firm settings, just like the flat fees themselves. And of course, you're going to have the quantity, the description, the rate, and everything else will be the same, but you're going to have those two items for the leads billing. Sometimes you may want to create an invoice on the fly and just bill for the flat fee that you're charging your client. And you just want to do it quickly and get that invoice prepared. So instead of adding it to the matter the way that I did, I can go to the quick add at the top here. I can choose new invoice from scratch, choose the matter I'd like to apply it to. And if you've never used this feature, this is a very nice thing to have because it gives you a blank invoice template. And you can add any line items that you need. You can modify the dates, discounts, tax rates, all of the same things you'd be able to do on a regular invoice template, but you're starting with the invoice template as opposed to starting with the unbilled activity. So I'm going to click Create New down here with the plus sign. I'm going to select Service because I'm not creating a time entry or a soft cost. My subtype is going to give me all of those pre-populated flat fees that I've created. It'll still modify the description for me based on what I've got in my settings. But now I also have the advantage of discounting this if needed by a percentage or a dollar amount, like you would on any other line item on an invoice. And everything else is going to remain the same. So if I say save and close, I now have one invoice with just this flat fee. And I can now create this. So just so you're aware that you have options, you may want to keep this entirely separate from anything else on a matter. You may want to just create an invoice for the flat fee and be done with it. And this is a good way to get that accomplished. So now that we have kind of gone into the differences between some of the hourly and the flat fee versus just flat fee. Again, you also have flat fee and contingency, and you can change that at any time throughout the course of a matter. And we've shown how we can get that queued up into an invoice or just create the invoice from scratch. I'd like to go into our flat fee productivity report. As far as Zola reporting goes, this is going to be the top of the line report for you to use for your flat fees. And I'm going to explain all of the benefits of this report. You can obviously favorite this report. So if you put a star next to it, and it is going to be under productivity reports, you can have that be a shortcut up here. And when we open this up, we can see all of our different flat fee matters. So this is going to be different from our timekeeper productivity report because we are looking at how our flat fee matters are, how they're operating, how they're producing, if that makes sense. So it's going to show you the hours that have been worked, the flat fees that have been billed, the flat fees that have been collected, but then you have your imputed rate and your imputed total. So your imputed rate is going to collectively take into account all of the users that may have put in work on the matter, time entries, no charge, don't show entries. It's going to calculate that in the background. And if you have a user that has one rate, one user that has another rate, maybe a third user that has a different rate, all of that's going to be calculated in terms of their work. So you can see the rate of the people working on the matter collectively here. If you were to bill this, that's why it's imputed. And your imputed total. So your imputed total is going to show you what you would have made on this matter in revenue if you had billed this hourly based on the current user rates and the work that was done, how much was done. So what this is essentially going to tell you is, did I do myself a disservice, or did I do the right thing in making this a flat fee versus billing by the hour? And hopefully, in most cases, the answer will be that the flat fee was the better option. But you will see the difference here in this column. And this is going to help you identify any outliers. So if there are any matters where there is a stark difference and something may not be adding up, or maybe it should be a little bit higher than what it is, this is going to give you all of those details and sort of help you analyze and determine where you might want to make some adjustments with your billing. You do have the standard filters that we provide for reporting purposes. So you can make this any date range that you'd like, filter by any practice area, responsible attorney. And we did add a display details option. And this is very nice because this is going to show you, let me actually toggle that off because I didn't scroll down before. If you're noticing the Stephanie Everett matter, if I turn that off, you're not going to see anything. If I turn it back on, you're actually going to see the detailed breakdown of what was done. So what service was provided to this person in addition to the numerical breakdown. So you're getting even more information from this report by turning that on, because you're seeing that description or that narrative that was prepared for the flat fee. So you know exactly what was done, when it was done, how many hours were put into it, and all of this additional information. And for anybody that might be wondering, the imputed rate is the rates of all of the users divided by the hours worked. You can always export this report via PDF. You can print it out. You can save it to your desktop. You can also export this to Excel if you need to. And with that, I am going to take any questions that you may have. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to enter any questions you might have in the Q&A section. And I'd like to hear your thoughts. So we don't have any questions at the moment. I'll give everybody another minute or so if you do have any that you might want to ask. Okay, so I have one person ask, can you add flat fee and hourly on the same bill? Yes. So if you have the matter marked as flat fee and hourly, you're going to be billing your time entries and the flat fee, depending on when you applied the flat fee, of course, on the same bill. So let's say that for my Alana Newman matter, I created a flat fee for her, and I also started billing because we wanted to get the case moving. And maybe for my first billing cycle, I have both flat fee and time. So if I update this and create a time entry. I do already have an unbilled flat fee on this matter. You can see the strike through under amount is gone, and so is the check under no charge don't show because we are billing now. Just to remind everybody, you can have the work type populate or pre-populate a default narrative as well. So now I have a non-invoice time entry and a flat fee, actually two flat fees. I created two before. And if I go to invoice unbilled activities for this, and I do this all in the same cycle, I will see all of those entries. So time, flat fee, soft cost, and I also have the vendor bill details. Oh, I apologize. I was not sharing my screen. Somebody said, I think I missed how the details were entered under the flat rate. So the details are entered in the description field. So when you go into a flat fee, you have that large box where you can either have a default narrative populate or just type in a description as you see fit at the time for what you did. And that's going to be right over here, this description box. When you invoice from scratch, does it then put it under flat fee? So if you were to create the flat fee on the invoice, I think the question is, will it show up under the flat fee tab? I did do that before for this matter, and I don't see it on here, but if I go to my invoices, I would definitely see the invoice there. And this is the one that I created from scratch, but I can look into whether or not that should be displaying. I would think it should. Okay. I apologize, guys. I'm switching between the questions and sharing my screen. Let me go back. So I was just pointing out before, I don't see the flat fee that was on the invoice from scratch here, but I do see the invoice itself. So I was just mentioning that I'm going to have to ask about whether or not that should be in this list. And for before, when I was showing the description or the details, that's right in this box where it says description on the flat fee modal. Okay, so we have a question. Will productivity report include no charges versus no charge don't show charges when doing imputed calculations? Because no charge don't show, some people may not want to use that for the purposes of keeping the matter clean and not having uninvoiced activity because it never does get invoiced. So the imputed calculations should be based on what the user's rates would be if they were charging. So no charge don't show and no charge should both be calculated in that same way, because it's really just factoring for flat fee matters. So if you mark it as no charge, I don't see why there would be any difference in that regard. And another person asked that I assume you can create a listing of flat fee items, description and pricing, and just call them from the drop-down menu. That is exactly right. So you're going to do that from your firm settings. And I always recommend going into firm settings as soon as you start using Zola and kind of have a feel for it and what you're going to want to put in there because that, again, that's the backbone of the database is what you're putting into those settings. So those drop downs, those pre-populated explanations, descriptions, all a very good idea to get that into the system even before you start billing, but it's never too late to do that. All right, so I think, okay, let's see. Specifying flat fee in the billing arrangement does not automatically create the flat fee amount. You still have to go in and create a flat fee billing entry. So that is correct. Just by establishing that a matter is going to be billed as flat fee does not imply that the system is going to apply a flat fee to the matter because it could be any flat fee. You could have 100 flat fees listed in your firm settings, and you're going to have to add those in because the system wouldn't know which ones to add for you or when to add them. So that is correct. It's just establishing the billing pattern for that matter and arranging the time entries accordingly. I do not see any other questions. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us in support. And thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope that this has been helpful and informative. Have a great day and have a great weekend, everybody.